quality public television is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC TV.
Funding for this program is provided in part by the North Carolina Broadcast Legends Production Fund, including contributions from the following: For a complete list of project funders, go to unctv.org/nclegends.
Welcome to North Carolina Broadcast Legends, featuring industry leaders sharing stories from the rich and significant history of the broadcasting business here in our state. I'm your host, Mike Weeks. James Fletcher, Jim Goodmon, is a broadcast pioneer. He grew up experiencing the broadcast business at the knee of his grandfather, A.J. Fletcher, the founder of Capital Broadcasting Company. He was only a teenager when WRAL-TV won its license from the FCC in an upset over much larger applicant, the Durham Life Insurance Company, then owners of powerhouse radio station WPTF. As a teenager in the summer, Jim and engineer Virgil Duncan would take off in Virgil Studebaker to take the field test intensity measurements of WRAL's signal. Jim would hand out free antennas to the homes they visited along the way, working to increase WRAL viewership with residents down east. During his 45-plus year career, Jim Goodmon has guided the explosive growth of CBC's broadcast holdings and led the company's expansion into satellite communications, new media, and into the digital age, with the first HD TV license in the U.S. Jim Goodmon is at the forefront of the broadcast industry, and the Capital Broadcasting Company that he leads is one of the oldest family-owned media companies in America. Jim Goodmon is the recipient of numerous awards and honors. Broadcasting and Cable Magazine presented Jim the DTV Pioneer Award for his leadership role and achievements in the advancement of digital television. He's a past president of the North Carolina Association of Broadcasters, a recipient of NCAB's Distinguished Service Award, a member of the North Carolina Broadcasting Hall of Fame, and the North Carolina Journalism Hall of Fame. Jim Goodmon, welcome.
Thank you, Mike. I'm glad to be here.
Pleasure to be here, and such a rich history, and your family has been very, very instrumental in what's happened in broadcasting, not only in the state, but in Raleigh. Let's talk a little bit about that. Your mother had three brothers.
Yes, so I had three uncles, Fred, Frank, and Floyd. Interesting story, everybody in broadcasting. Frank went to law school and then went to Washington and went to work for the Federal Radio Commission. Wasn't called the FCC yet. He learned about this new thing called radio and these radio announcements, and called home and said, we need to think about getting in this business. And so he got my grandfather and my uncle Fred got in the radio business in Raleigh, and his brother Floyd got in the radio business in Durham. Frank had a distinguished career as a communications lawyer. You know, there are 30 or 40 families, radio stations in North Carolina that he worked with and got the initial grant. So those are the pioneers. You know, they got going very early. Floyd's joined with another station, WDNC, in Durham, and got the license for WTVD, Channel 11. And my grandfather and my Uncle Fred got the license for WRAL-TV in 1956. Everybody's guiding attorney and counselor in that was my Uncle Frank.
Let's talk about the license for WRAL. That was a very competitive process.
Yeah, so remember, we put WRAL on the air. I mean, at that time, in the 50s, when you got a station, you had to put it on the air. It didn't exist. So the government, the government said, okay, we got this license, Channel 5 in Raleigh. Now, anybody wants it can apply. And you apply, and then you went through a very lengthy process of comparative hearings. FCC would come to town and interview people. It was a very long and drawn-out proposition. And so we had WRAL radio, WRAL AM and FM. AM was a 1,000-watt daytime, 250 at night. FM, big 250,000 watt station. And we were competing against Durham Life Insurance Company and WPTF AM, which was a wonderful, wonderful broadcasting station with all the news, early news giants in the state at WPTF. But we were able to win the license in competition with Durham Life, and here we are. It was a David and Goliath deal. But we had Frank Fletcher as our attorney. And worked really hard.
You were a teenager at the time, but
Right.
you were still working at WRAL. In fact, I believe you weren't supposed to be
No,
employed.
when I started, they had to pay me out of petty cash because it was against the law. And they didn't pay me very much out of petty cash. Yeah, I remember, but the Washington hearings, I remember that my grandfather would take the train to Washington and then would come back on Friday. I remember taking him to the train station and picking him up from the train station. That went on and on. That was a big fight.
Wow, wow. Well, you learned early on, or believed early on, that if you were going to be in the broadcasting business, which you were very interested in, you'd need to get a degree in engineering of some type. So you went on to school at Duke.
I did. My notion was that, okay, I need to be in engineering to have the career I wanted in broadcasting. And by the way, I changed my mind. My junior year, decided to change majors and did 3 years of the Navy Reserve. Never got back to finish that degree and went to work when I got out of the Navy.
So when you came back to work, what position did you have at WRAL?
Yeah, there was the operations manager. In other words, I'm very much into how the place works, how you get it on the air, what you need to do to put everything together. So we created an operations department, and I was operations manager.
Let's talk about what year that was. What year did you start back there?
That would have been 68.
1968.
Yeah.
And who was your boss at WRAL?
My boss at WRAL was Jesse Helms.
So, and what was Mr. Helms' position at that time?
He was, so A.J. Fletcher was chairman, Fred Fletcher was president, Jesse Helms was executive vice president. Fred Fletcher had sales, promotion, and marketing. Mr. Helms had programming and operations.
Okay. Now, something I find very interesting, and people may or may not know, but you didn't do any sports in those days.
Okay, so, well, we did editorials. I've always thought that one of the primary interests my grandfather had in getting the television license was doing editorials to oppose the editorial position of the News and Observer. He was very much at a different point of view, different approach to things than the News and Observer, and wanted to do editorials. And early on, after we were on the air, we started doing editorials. He hired Jesse Helms to do them. It was a very interesting. Now look, they were 4.5 minutes. You don't do anything. You don't do a segment 4.5 or 5 minutes anymore.
Jesse Helms' editorials were 4.5 minutes.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, and they ran every night in the 6 o'clock news, and we didn't do sports.
Wow.
Because we didn't have time. It was a very, no other stations in the United States were doing editorials that we knew of, and because of our editorials, the FCC developed rules about how you should do editorial. So that came from our effort.
You know, we were sharing earlier, at one point, Jesse Helms decided he wanted to run for the Senate, but he had a contract at WRAL.
He had a contract at WRAL.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I remember the day a group of people came to see my grandfather and asked him to let, I call him Senator Helms, give him a leave of absence from his contract to run for the U.S. Senate. And my grandfather agreed to that. Was very careful about you're not going to be paid while you're gone, and when you come back, you're going to be paid the same thing. But he did that and won.
Wow. Wow. So he went from WRAL doing editorials to being Senator Helms.
Viewpoint. They were called Viewpoint.
Wow.
The opening was, and now Viewpoint.
Wow.
The daily editorial expression of Capitol Broadcasting.
My gosh. That's terrific. Well, let's talk about some other programming that day.
Okay.
Let's talk about the #1 rated show
Yes.
on WRAL-TV.
Well, so here's what it was. Our top weekly program was Championship Wrestling.
And when did that air?
That aired at 5 o'clock on Saturday afternoon.
Now,
by the way, we recorded that on Wednesday nights in the studio. We had bleachers. We can put 200 people in. And
the days of live TV in the studio.
I ran camera for a long time on Championship Wrestling. And then we would run it on Saturday. We made copies for 25 other television stations.
Oh, it ran in other markets,
Ran
too.
in other markets.
Yeah.
Then we had, Championship Wrestling, Porter Wagner.
The Porter Wagner Show.
And Arthur Smith.
And Arthur Smith.
That was 2 hours. Those were the 2 hours. That was 2 huge hours.
The #1
Everybody
rated,
watched.
that was the
Yes.
the highest audience all week long from 5 to 7 on Saturday night with Championship Wrestling, Porter Wagner, and Arthur Smith.
Yes.
Wow. That is wonderful.
Yes. Now that gave I had programming, and ABC had started a show that was really good. We were all talking about Wide World of Sports. 5 to 6:30 on Saturday. So we didn't take it, and I thought that was a big problem. And we eventually moved Championship Wrestling to Saturday night at 11:30, and moved down the country music shows and started carrying Wide World of Sport. It was wonderful with Howard Cosell. That was a big sort of expanded television broadcasting the Wide World of Sports. That was a great program.
Everything worked out. Jim, when did you become the person in charge of WRAL?
Well, let's see. Senator Helms went to the Senate. My uncle, Fred, retired, and I became president in 70. Do you have the date? I don't know.
Well,
What's
that's
the
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, but you, because of your interest in how things worked, you've always been interested in technology.
Yes, I'm an inside guy. Never been on the air. Run from every camera, but very interested in the technology. Not so much what the technology is. I'm very interested in how it helps us improve our programming. You know, when we started satellite news gathering, when we sent a news crew out and they could send their signal back to us by satellite and we could go live, it was a huge change. There have been lots of things that have happened that have made what we do, which is put you there. We can put our audience there while it's happening. We've had a lot of technology to help us with that.
And you have an undaring commitment to community issues and standards and the presentation of local news.
And you know, I'm not the oldest rat in the barn, but I'm closing in on it. But I came along when we didn't believe the license to WRAL was ours. we believed that it belonged to the government, and that there was this list of things we were supposed to do in order to keep our license, and that the community service was what it was all about. Right? I think you probably have that same notion too, don't you?
I do.
Yeah, yeah. And now there were many more, if you want to call them regulations, okay, but I thought they were all good. How much news are you doing? How much public affairs are you doing? Doing any children's programming? Are you talking to the community about what's important to them? So I can't. That's sort of how I've come up through the business, and we've really emphasized community involvement at the station, involvement in whole lots of projects, and I like to say, if somebody from the community comes to us with a project, you better have a good reason for not doing it.
Interesting.
Right. Let's see if we can't figure out how to help move this along.
You know, you have a strong dedication to the community and local news. Many people have said that in the business that WRAL-TV is one of the best local television stations in America, if not the best local television station in America. And along that lines, you've had some of the best television news anchors in the country. Let's talk about some of those.
Charlie Gaddy.
Charlie Gaddy. Wow.
Came over from WPTF.
Radio.
Yeah. Yes, Charlie was on WPTF radio, and my grandfather's wife, Margaret, listened to him every day. One day, I didn't like to get called over to the office, but I was called over, and it was, Jim, Margaret likes this boy, Charlie Gaddy, on WPTF. Do you think we could get him over here on television? Well, at the same time, Fred Fletcher, who I learned a lot from my grandfather, and I learned a lot from my Uncle Fred, who really cared about the community. Fred was that was his. Anyhow, Charlie Gaddy had also made a record. He was a singer. And so Fred called me over to his office. It was, oh no. He said, there's this boy, Charlie Gaddy, he's made a record. I want you to video that record, make a music video with Charlie. So I had two instructions to get with Charlie Gaddy. And it's the best instructions I've ever gotten. I mean, that was just now, he didn't come over to do news. He did several other things, lots of things, but it was clear what a wonderful professional Charlie is, and he moved to news, and the rest is history.
Yeah, yeah. You've had some great weathercasters as well.
Yes, Bob DeLaban, the biggest name in weather, was terrific. He came over from radio. And then Greg Fishel, who was really, I think, changed. He's a weather person that really loves the weather and really wants to tell you what and why, sort of the mad professor type, and has really connected with the market. He's great.
He is great. Let's talk about some other things that have happened. I believe it was 1989. There was a serious ice storm. Ice built up on transmission towers, and WRAL's tower fell.
Yes, it was a Sunday. I got a call that WPTF's tower had fallen. And I said to myself, boy, bless not ours. And about 30 minutes later, ours went down.
Wow.
And that was, it wasn't that there was so much ice, it was that it was very warm the next day, and the ice melted on one side of the tower, not on the other, from the sun, which put some tension in the guy wires, and they came down.
Yeah, so much on one side that it couldn't take it.
Yeah, so that's a tough.
What did you do?
Well, we had to go to work. The first thing we did was put our station up on satellite to get it to all the cable companies and the satellite companies.
So if you had cable, you could still get WRAL.
Cable, yes, we were on cable.
But if you had it with an antenna, you were
within 4 or 5 hours we were up on cable.
Okay.
Nothing over the air, and then we were able to lease channel 40 in Fayetteville, so we were back on the air with 40.
Wow.
But it was tough. Our ratings, we had a pretty significant ratings decline, and you don't want to do that. And nobody was hurt. It was good. Nobody was hurt. And we set about a year and a half or so to build a tower.
Wow. Wow.
Now, WRAL-FM was on that tower.
Yeah.
So we had to come up with a plan for WRAL-FM, but we got through it.
Let's talk about new technologies. You're always looking for new technologies. Something happened in 1996 that changed the way people watch television forever. And the FCC issued the first experimental high-definition TV license to WRAL.
Okay. If you can improve your product, you should. Right? You do it. If there's a way to improve your product, you should do it. I had seen high-definition television in Washington, actually in Congress. It was the Japanese version. It was analog version. But I had seen it and couldn't believe it. The picture quality. I mean, it was night and day. Oh, me. I mean, this is really something.
A wake-up call.
Wake-up call. So now it's several years before the United States adopts a digital high-definition standard. As soon as the technology was determined, we got an experimental license to work with it, test it out, and then when you could get a license, we got it, and we did the first high-definition newscast.
Wow.
And I'm still amazed at it.
Yeah.
Now.
Well, can you imagine watching sports today?
No, you can't do
without high definition. It just it changed the playing field for everything.
Gave us other channels, so we have 2 or 3 channels. So it was a significant. That was a huge change. Yeah. And broadcasting led the way.
They did.
I mean, cable. Nobody did high definition until we did high definition.
Right. Let's talk about another sea change, if you will, in broadcasting, and that was the internet. Yeah. You were one of the leaders with your website, station website, WRAL.com. And if I'm not mistaken, you have 8 million unique visitors a month right now at that website.
We have a significant newscast, a significant website, and I believe it's because we started really early. We actually didn't pay any attention to selling advertising. We tried to pay attention to what is this, what can you do with it, what do people want, and most importantly, how can we use this to promote WRAL News? At first, we looked at it as a promotion vehicle. We're going to get you interested in this story, and so that you'll watch WRAL News. And it's grown significantly. It's a major factor. There's a lot of competition for advertising, but we continue to improve our site and keep going. That's what's going on. We're right into social media. All of our talent's on Facebook. Everybody's on Twitter. We count up everything every day, and so we're very much a part of that. Local broadcast news is still what people trust the most.
Absolutely.
It's a lot about fake news on Twitter and Facebook and that sort of stuff, but there isn't that kind of discussion about local news. And in our market, we got 3 really good local news stations, so I think we're blessed with that.
And I think an interesting fact that people may not realize is when you started your website, you wanted to get the formula right. You didn't take any advertising for 3 years.
Right. Well, our engineering guys, our engineering crew, we had some really top folks, were true believers in the internet. Now remember, the internet started as no advertising, open to everybody, no freedom of everything. And if ever I'd say, maybe we ought to think about advertising, they would turn blue and say, this is the medium. Doesn't have advertising. Yeah. Everybody can be on it. There are no controls. I think we all realized a couple, 3 years into it that this was going to be a significant advertising platform, and I talked them into it.
Let's talk very quickly. You also are a huge supporter of public television.
Yes.
In fact, we are in the Goodmon studio.
It's a heavy door. Yes. At the encouragement of Bill Friday, I was the first president of the Public TV Foundation, and we raised the money to equip this building. We have a terrific, so we got 12 stations, covers the entire state. One of the state's best resources and best assets. So this is something we should really be proud of and nourish and support.
We need everybody to support public television. And we also want to tell people we're running out of time. Jim, we had an interview that we did, a long-form interview a few weeks ago, and that is available if people would like to see more about Capital Broadcasting and your comments, and that's available on the web at ncbroadcastlegends.com. Again, if you want to see more, the streaming video interview that we did before this, go to ncbroadcastlegends.com and you'll be able to see that interview. You continue to innovate, new ideas coming. Where would we be without you and high definition TV?
Come on, Mike. Thank you for doing this.
This is great.
I've enjoyed this a lot.
Well, thank you so much for being our guest today. My guest today has been Jim Goodmon.
Funding for this program is provided in part by the North Carolina Broadcast Legends Production Fund, including contributions from the following: For a complete list of project funders, go to unctv.org/nclegends.
Quality public television is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC TV.